Kicking off the final hour, though, is our good friend Tillamook's own, the columnist at the Oregonian, Bill Oram, at Bill Oram on Twitter. You can go give him a follow. Bill, good morning to you. While I was on parental leave, evidently I missed this. That happened on the air, and I'm sad that I missed that. And if you give us a drop that good, here's how I start the interview. I don't usually do this. A little choose your own adventure. You are the columnist at the paper here. What's the biggest story to you right now? Is it a waste of a Blazer season coming to an end? The Beavers continuously decimated by the transfer portal and the landscape of college athletics. Oregon spring football. Like, what's number one on your big board right now?
I kind of think you have to go Oregon State, don't you? I mean, the Blazers. The Blazers kind of. We've known kind of what this season was and was going to be, and Oregon kind of does what Oregon does, but this Oregon State story just keeps evolving, keeps getting worse for the Beavers, for that university, for their fan base. A lot of questions in Corvallis right now, and really just I think the biggest one is, when does it stop, and how does Oregon State pull itself out of this, and how does it kind of rise above all these issues? Because clearly whatever Oregon State is doing right now is not enough to keep the band together.
I guess that would be the natural follow-up question. Do you think they can stop this?
So I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, and there does probably need to be a 30,000-foot view here of what the future for Oregon State athletics looks like. It's not going to be, it's not all going to be the direct aftermath of realignment and in this new world. I mean, there will be a settling at some point, whatever that looks like. Oregon State will find a home. It might take a couple of years. It might take, it might take changes in leadership. It might take some, a coaching cycle. But there will be a time where Oregon State, things will settle and things will be normalized for Oregon State. I do feel like probably if you are an Oregon State fan and you're holding on to, we're a Pac-12 school, and we have this caliber of athlete, and this is what our athletic program should look like because this is the way it's always been, and we should hang on to that. I think you're in for disappointment, in to whatever degree there's any left, right? Damian Martinez leaving is crushing for Oregon State, but it also, I mean, his situation was always really interesting because to have somebody who was that fiercely vocal about being loyal to Oregon State during everything that it was going through was just really unique. Nobody else was really putting themselves out there to the degree that Damian Martinez was. And if you recall, he said he was going to stay at Oregon State the week of the Oregon game. So Jonathan Smith hadn't even left yet, and Damian Martinez had pledged that he was going to stay. So he'd made that decision, announcement, promise before Jonathan Smith left, before Trent Bray got hired, before he had a chance to see what the coaching staff was going to look like, who was on the roster and who he was going to be playing with, and how it felt to be in the program in a post-Jonathan Smith era. There's just a lot that changed from that moment. So I actually kind of felt a little bad for Damian Martinez just because I felt like he boxed himself in at a really inopportune time. But obviously, I mean, it's crushing for people who were able to look at Damian Martinez as a real beacon in all of this, as somebody who was, and I'm not saying that this means he isn't, but, in that moment, was about the right things, right? He was loyal. Oregon State's been all about loyalty. Their NIL collective, talks about wanting to reward loyalty. There's not a lot of it in college sports right now. And so, the fact that Damian Martinez is leaving is not at all surprising. But if you're an Oregon State fan, an Oregon State booster, you're looking for kind of, you're looking for, a light at the end of the tunnel, or, an oasis in the desert, the presence of Damian Martinez, who could play anywhere in the country, probably was that. And now that's gone too.
Would you bet 8:07 a.m., given the news that happened last night, would you bet that Stanford's already talked to Scott Rueck?
I did have that thought. I've not asked anyone about that. I don't know. I don't know what Stanford will do. I mean, Stanford has a couple of longtime assistants to Tara Vanderveer, Katie Stedding, who is a Portland basketball legend, is on the staff there. I don't know if they would look internally or if they would go beyond the family, so to speak. I mean, there's a lot of great coaches out there. I don't know about Scott Rueck. I just don't know. Scott Rueck is as you guys know, I just got done saying there's no loyalty in college sports, but Scott Rueck is the guy who wears his Oregon State-dom on his sleeve probably more than anyone else, like who feels and believes in the Oregon State rivalry. That's in his blood. I do think that there's potentially a point where Scott Rueck says, I can't do this here, and I just don't know where this is going with this particular Oregon State women's team. I don't know how severe the bleeding is going to be. I suspect there's more to come. I don't think it's just going to be Talia von Oelhoffen and Tamia Gardner. Yeah. There's certainly a lot of rumblings about who's going to be next or the other shoe to fall. Can he keep enough pieces from this team together to feel like a threat next year? And, if you keep Reagan Beers, I think you can do a whole lot with Reagan Beers and kind of other pieces around her. Donovan Hunter and Reagan Beers would be a really good starting point if you can keep those two in the program. So I think Scott Rueck only leaves Oregon State if he feels like he needs to leave Oregon State. And, others have made this point about the Stanford job, but it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge for whoever steps in there, not just because you're replacing a legend like Kalen DeBoer replacing Nick Saban at Alabama, but because of, the academic restrictions. You don't really live in the transfer portal at Stanford the way a lot of other schools do, and the travel is not very appealing with Stanford in the ACC. And maybe that's not the 10-year solution, but it's kind of what you're dealing with right now. And I think that has hurt Stanford in recruiting already in women's basketball, where Stanford always had this baked-in advantage. I think the realignment impact on Stanford has been real. So. I think there's a lot that has to shake out for Stanford to even know how appealing of a job that is going forward. So Scott Rueck's an interesting name. I think Scott Rueck's currently still trying to save his team at Oregon State.
We're talking with Bill Oram, columnist at the Oregonian, at Bill Oram on Twitter. You can go give him a follow there. Let's go from one depressing story to another, Bill, and that is the Blazer season is coming to an end this week. Now, you bounced around. You've worked in different parts of the country. I know that, but you're Oregonian, born and bred. You've known this organization a long time. You've followed them from afar and now up close. Is this the worst Trailblazer season in your lifetime?
It is. Okay, let's see.
Let's unpack this.
I was trying to think. I was thinking like the 04-05 Blazers when Sharif Abdur-Rahim was on the team, and you kind of go down kind of some of the players on that roster, and it was certainly a team not going anywhere. Here's what I would say. The Blazers have always found a way. The NBA, I think, for a long time rewarded teams being in the middle. I don't think the league had the thirst, for, there's a saying in the NBA now that the two best places to be are at the top or at the bottom, and the worst place to be is in the middle. And I don't think that was the case for a really long time. And then you get into some of these heralded draft classes, and sort of widespread tanking became the norm. And you can point to whatever team kind of ushered that in. I mean, Philadelphia did it probably at the highest level, and just like consistently being bad on purpose. And Portland never really did that or had to do that, and enjoyed like these really like sort of delightful years, the decade of Damian Lillard, as all this was happening around the league. And so Portland was protected from it. And now I think this is sort of a cold glass of water of kind of what the NBA is now. And I'm not defending it. I don't like it, but this is kind of what the NBA is. And, is there dignity in the Blazers being 8 games better if they had, if maybe everybody who was physically able to play basketball right now was on the court? Like, there probably is, but does that help the Blazers become a winning franchise any sooner? And that's kind of where the NBA is. I don't like it. I wish there was a way to, to see these guys play. I mean, you buy tickets for April, a couple months in advance, and you're watching guys you've never heard of potentially play. I mean, it's not to the degree it was last season. Last season, I mean, literally there were guys who will never play in the NBA again on the roster for the Blazers. Right now, I think, you're still getting DeAndre Ayton out there. You're still seeing Scoot Henderson, and he played really, really well last night. What did he finish with? 14 assists?
15. I think he had 19
yeah.
and 15. Yeah.
Yeah, played really, really well. And so it's like, there's still a lot to be said for that and the development of those players. I mean, it'd be different, I think, if Shaedon Sharpe was able to be out there and you were seeing sort of this young future come together. It just, I think that the part that's hard is that it's the third straight season where the Blazers essentially shut it down after the trade deadline or after the All-Star break. And in a vacuum, you can understand each season why you did that, but the product ends up becoming really unwatchable, really uninteresting, uncompelling. I don't know a ton of Blazer fans who are still watching every game. I don't know if there are Blazer fans who are still watching every game. It's not a very appealing product at this exact moment. That said, I do think that, as soon as, the team starts winning and starts being a little bit more exciting, I think Blazer fans, will snap out of it. I think they'll be there. I don't know that Blazer fans have gone away, but it is interesting. Like, I was reading I think it was a Bill Simmons piece from like 2008 or 9 when Oklahoma City had first gotten the Thunder, and Bill Simmons went and was like, wow, this might be the best fan base in the NBA, second only to Portland.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, we just took for granted that Portland had the most rabid, loyal, excited fans in the NBA. And the relationship between the city and the team right now is in a really different place. And I don't know if, because I think ideally, a pro sports team reflects the identity of your city in some ways. And I don't know if the Blazers have lost some of that market share to the Timbers and the Thorns. I don't know if it's I do think there has been a bit of a whiplash of, you had old faithful Mr. Reliable Damian Lillard for a long time, and now you're sort of trying to build new relationships with guys who aren't really even on the court. I think that's been a challenge, but I think Portland is still trying to figure out kind of what it makes of the modern day Blazers, and I don't think the Blazers have made that incredibly easy for fans.
Well, I've never had a season as an adult where I've had more people offer tickets to games, not even asking for money in return. Just like, I don't want to go. Hey, I got these.
Yeah, here's $20. Take my tickets.
Yeah, it's kind of what I had tickets, 100 level tickets yesterday to the Pelicans game offered, and we were like, nah, we're good.
Yeah.
And here's last thing for you. I hate the radio clock, but sometimes this is what it is. And I hate to put you on a time crunch here, but we're way over. Is their coach good? Do they have a coach? This is year 3, and certainly you can say what the situation has obviously been. Are we going to go into year 4 going, is the coach good?
How much time do I have on this one?
I'll give you 40 seconds.
I would say that Chauncey Billups has been dealt a pretty unfortunate hand. Obviously, he's coaching a very different team than he took over. I mean, think back to who was on that roster: Norman Powell, C.J. McCollum, Robert Covington, Damian Lillard. Just very different circumstances. That said, I don't think that we've seen in 3 years what Chauncey's real skill set as a coach is. Like, I don't think he has shown us that he is a good coach, to answer your question. I think he's an amazing connector of people. I think he's like a really good leader. But from a basketball standpoint, I don't know that we've seen that he is a good basketball coach. Is he good at developing talent? I think you could point to kind of what he got out of Shaedon Sharpe over the course of last season as the ability to like bring along a really young player and get him better from point A to point B. Scoot is a lot better right now than he was at point A. So, I mean, there maybe is something there that he has helped develop these young guys. I don't think he's going anywhere this offseason, just because you're still kind of in a little bit of a juncture as a franchise where you're still figuring things out. He's got a year left on his contract. I think you bring Chauncey in next season, and then maybe he's a little bit on the hot seat at the start of next year.
Great stuff as always. Bill Oram, he's one of our favorites. He gave us that great soundbite. He is the columnist at the Oregonian, Tillamook's own.
Shout out Neatarts.
At Bill Oram on Twitter. What's the best Oregon coast town, Bill? Lastly. Sorry, quick, go.
Oceanside.
Oh,
Oceanside is definitely in my top 5.
Look
It
at
is
deep
so
cuts.
underrated.
Look at Bill Orm with the
People
deep,
don't understand
coastal deep cuts.
Oceanside.
All right, our producer's
Walking
gonna
through
kill
that
us.
rock, oh, what a glorious little path, and then you got all that beach. Oh, it's so nice there.
Thanks as always,
Matt,
Bill.
I'm mad you put me on the spot because I had to answer honestly. Otherwise, I should have just been like, "Oh, obviously it's Cannon Beach." My goodness,
Come
go to
on.
Cannon Beach.
Well, we have a coworker who has a house in Manzanita, and it's all he goes is Manzanita. He's like, Manzanita's the best. I'm like, you literally go nowhere else. You don't have an opinion here.
Manzanita is great, though. I love
It
Manzanita.
is. It's nice.
All right, thanks, Bill. We love you.
Appreciate you guys.
There you go. Bill Oram of the Oregonian. Good stuff from him on Oregon State and the Blazers. Kind of depressing if you're a Blazer and Beaver fan right now.